Hi, this is Jeff Hare with ERP Risk Advisors. We are bringing you a little bit of an audit support video here. Over the last, 6 to 9 months, we've had a couple of customers of ours that have had utilities diagnostics enabled in their production environment, and the audit firms have kind of harassed them about whether that this could allow somebody to change financially significant transactions, so whether or not it needs to be in scope from a SOX perspective and trying to evaluate what the risk would be related to utilities diagnostics access. So the first thing we want to do is talk to you quickly about the utilities diagnostics. So utilities diagnostics is a profile option. And in this environment, which is an environment hosted by Chaosis, who let us use this environment for a little bit of testing, we have utilities diagnostics turned on to the site level. So first of all, whether it's turned on at the site level or for a specific user or group of users, it poses the same risk to an organization. I think the audit firms would look at this as, could somebody having access to one or more forms, or they can maintain some information through utilities diagnostics, update transactions, change accounting, flex fields, amounts on either unposted transactions or posted transactions. So it really doesn't matter if it's one person at the user level or people at the site level. So I'm going to make the argument of why this shouldn't be in scope from a SOX perspective. It's certainly my recommendation to clients is this should never be enabled in production, and I'll talk about why that is as we go through the example. So the first example I'm going to look at is on the general ledger side. So this is kind of the heart of the matter for some of the audit firms is, can somebody with inquiry access manipulate a journal entry, or can somebody manipulate a journal entry that's already posted, or can somebody manipulate a journal entry that is not subject to journal entry review and should be, or vice versa. So first thing I would have you note is utilities diagnostics does not work in inquiry access. So if you're worried about somebody with inquiry access being able to change data for kind of give them more access than what they have. So this is the journal entry inquiry form. I'm just pulling up a journal entry, and here's how utilities diagnostics is used. So when utilities diagnostics is enabled at the site level via yes, or at the user level via yes for a particular user, or the responsibility level or whatever, you have this examine capability. And when it's enabled yes, you see this field that pops up immediately, and there's some fields that can be maintained through this. If it's inquiry, the question really comes down to, can they maintain data related to this? And the answer to that is, I believe, no, as I'll post here. So I'm just changing this to posted. This would be kind of a silly thing to change, but the value of posted. And when I go to save this, it says no changes to save. It's really not a changeable field in the form. So this is a form that's derived from the back end via other things. So I'm going to go back out, go back into this, and change a field that would be more like common, if you will, for fraud risk or manipulation risk, which is taking a particular field here. So this is a dollar amount. I'm going to change the dollar amount from $100 to $1,000 or $100,000. So I'm changing that. Hit OK, and it blocks me. It says examine cannot set the value of lines entered. So there's two examples. I think it's fairly clear from an inquiry access perspective, it cannot be maintained. So the other response I give is the access to this generally just gives them the access to things they can maintain through a form they already have access to. So if I pull up that same unposted entry, they have the ability through the normal form to change this value. So to the extent they're changing this here, it's not going to make debits equal credits, but no big deal. But if they want to change it to here, that's really no access differently than what they would have through the normal form itself. So those that have entry access to a form, the question is, can they do something beyond what they have within the form? And I think for the most part, it's hard to make an argument, and I can't really think of an argument that would give them access in excess of what they have through the normal form. So now the question comes down to, are there things behind the scenes that they could be changing in a form that could be financially significant, or could be allow them to manipulate financial data or a transaction in such a way that would be something above and beyond what they can do in the form. So the argument I make here is really no. If I go through and I look at the fields, for example, that can be changed within this, you can always find fields that aren't necessarily displayed within the form. These are just specific columns in the table. But most cases, if I change something like enter debit or something like that, it would cause the system, the integrity of the transaction itself to break. It would break the transaction, and it's not something you would normally do. But so let's look at something like, so those are the things I would argue you'd not want to change because of referential integrity within the system. But it's hard to make an argument that changing the referential integrity for a transaction, so like this, for example, is a journal entry. If I change the referential integrity, it's not going to be postable, right? You're not going to be able to post this journal entry. So there's operational reasons why I would argue you shouldn't allow this into production. So like I have access to these internal IDs. So this is things that are keeping things in sync between tables within the system. And I would not want to allow somebody to change this because it could corrupt the data, and it could change the referential integrity, or it could, not allow something to be posted. But I can't make an argument how that would be financially significant. So from an operational perspective, I would say absolutely nobody should be able to get into this and make changes to it because it's going to potentially corrupt the data. But from a SOX perspective, it's hard to argue that this could be financially significant. So the other argument I've heard is that it would allow them, in this case, to change a posted transaction and maybe perhaps make the sampling of transactions from an auditor's perspective to be flawed. So the example that was given to me is the source. So the source on a journal entry certainly drives whether you view this as a system-generated journal entry, things like cost management or assets that are coming from subledgers, versus those that are manual. So something that would be a spreadsheet, a source, or a source of manual. So what I'm going to do in this example is try to go in and manipulate a journal entry. So I'm going to take a journal entry that's already posted of a source of spreadsheet that would normally get pulled as part of a sample for manual journal entry control. I'm going to try to change this source from spreadsheet to something like assets, where the sample wouldn't pull that data, and therefore the population of the sample for manual journal entries would be incomplete. So if I go into this field and on this file, I'm going to say, can I change this to assets? Okay, now if I hit OK and I try to hit save, it says no changes to save. So it's basically not an updatable field through the utilities diagnostics process. Having said that, though, let's confirm that. Let me try to requery this and make sure that it didn't save it somehow in the background. So I'm going to query this, take this batch name, and requery this specific batch. So I'm querying that specific batch, requerying it, and the source still is spreadsheet. So even though I try to change it, and it looks like I may have changed it from the examine by just overriding the assets, or overriding the value here, and I hit OK, and it shows assets there, it's really not changing it, because when I try to save it, it's not saving it, and when I try again to requery it, the transaction, the value is still spreadsheet. So I don't see a way for somebody to manipulate the source, which is one of the risks that was described. So anyway, we, ERP Risk Advisors, we do audit support, this type of things for clients all the time. If you're interested in this particular topic, or there's another topic where you're having auditors pose some risks that you think that are not relevant, or you want to see if we can figure out how to get you out of those risks, if you will, so to speak, or push back on the auditors, please feel free to contact us. I can be reached personally. This is Jeffrey Hare. I can be reached at jhare@erpra.net, so it's jhare@erpra.net, or you can contact us through the Contact Us page at erpra.net. Thanks for listening, and if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to contact us. Thanks.